Last fall, we started getting word that seed corn production and soybean seed production wasn't good in the U.S., and there was panic among farmers and dealers and seed companies. It was pandemonium for a little while there, but one thing that I said all the way through is, you know what? I'll guarantee you we've got way more than enough corn and soybeans to plant every acre we want to plant in this country.
Well, that's true, but the problem with that is, like with soybean varieties, a seed company may come out with 100,000 acres of a new variety the first year, and by the next year, they may have enough to sell for 1,000,000 acres. We have to keep in mind, whether it's corn or soybeans or any crop, when a new variety is created, there's only a small amount of seed. There was one cross made, maybe it made one ear of corn, and now that ear can get reproduced with soybeans, same thing. Maybe there's one plant to start with and you end up with a handful of seeds. Well, they get reproduced, now you have a bushel. That bushel gets reproduced, now you have 40. That 40 gets reproduced, now you have a whole bunch more. And so it's always going to start small.
Yeah, it is going to start small, but here's what I always come back to. Who cares? I mean, you got to spread your risk a little bit like we talked earlier in the show, but the other side of it is, do you really know what the best hybrids are going to be this coming year? Do you really know what the best soybean varieties are going to be? Does your seed dealer really know? I don't think so in most cases. And you can look at all the plot work that you want to. It's just like if I go back a year ago, everybody in the industry, it seemed like, was talking about, oh, Smart Stacks doesn't work very well and it yields poorly and they just didn't make the crosses right. This just isn't working, okay? And on our own farm here, we planted just a few fields of Smart Stacks, mostly VT3 or Straight Roundup or Liberty Link or whatever, and guess what ended up winning on our farm? The top 3 fields we had on our farm were all Smart Stacks, Darren. What happened?
Well, okay, hold on. Now there's 2 things to think about. There's the trait package, and then there's the germplasm.
But my whole point is just this. For anybody that's going to go out there and tell you, well, we know for sure that these are the best 3 hybrids you should have on your farm, I would think twice about going to that person for seed recommendations because they don't know. It's just like the top variety of soybeans on our farm last year made 75.4 bushels on a whole field. Okay, this year, because we had an early frost, that hurt the yield at least 5 or 10 bushels, maybe more, and we only ended up with 55. Now that number that was the winner last year finished probably 12th on our farm. Okay, so all these other varieties, we thought, well, we better cut the acres down a little bit. They're not going to do as well. And what happens? They win.
Well, I'm just not too worried about it. If I have to switch a few hybrids, yes, there are some hybrids that I just totally fall in love with, and I've had them for a couple of years on my farm and I know they work. But the ones that are really in tight supply this year for the most part are the brand new ones. And the ones that have been out for a couple of years, the companies for the most part had decent production on those. Now the ones that are going to South America to blow up and try and get seed back here in time for this planting season, a lot of those are the brand new trait package and the brand new germplasm, and guess what? You haven't seen them enough on your farm to know if that is the best hybrid or not. So I'm really not going to lose 1 minute of sleep over this. If I had to plant last year's hybrids again on my farm instead of getting that brand new one, I'm not too worried about it because you know what? That new hybrid is probably only a half a bushel or a bushel better anyway.
Okay, so almost every farmer in the country didn't get exactly what he ordered originally because there was such a tremendous seed shortage this year. And that shortage is going to be even worse if South American production doesn't get here in time for when planting starts. So if we have an early spring, we're going to have even more problems than what we have today. But here's where I'm going with this whole thing. It's an industry-wide thing. Don't get so terribly mad at your seed dealer or your seed company. Everybody's dealing with this. Everybody has the issue. And we're going to have issues every single year because seed is a living, breathing organism. Even if the seed production came out perfect, for whatever reason, sometimes seed just goes bad in the middle of the winter and they run spring germ test, early spring germ test, and all of a sudden, all the seed that we thought was good, it's not. So I'm just trying to tell you, just try to keep a level head about the whole thing and don't get so terribly upset. This is just one of the things we always have to deal with on the farm.
Now for this year, it's a little more of a problem with the seed corn supply than it is with the soybean supply. There are certain areas of the country where there were some problems with soybean production, but not quite as widespread as there was with corn production this year. Now, I want to focus on soybeans for just a minute though. There are going to be soybeans coming back from South America every single year. There's new varieties, there's additional quantities of some really hot numbers, this kind of thing. But anytime you get seed back from South America, they do the best they can to produce good quality seed. However, they've got some different diseases, they've got some different soils and these kind of things, and they aren't quite as focused as we are in the United States on, we have to put this variety on this particular soil. It's a little different when the seed company says, wow, I really need 1,000 acres of production on this variety. It could go anywhere. So make sure when you do get seed from South America that you're treating that seed, especially on soybeans. Put a good fungicide package on there.
One last thing I guess I wanted to get to. There are a lot of people in our industry that talk about how variety selection is so important. I think it's important, but it's not this great big thing that everybody talks about, and here's the reason why. Because if I do everything else right on the farm, I got my drainage fixed, I have good fertility, I have good disease control, I have nice soft soil, I mean I've done everything I can to reduce compaction. I mean, I treat my overall crop and my fields well, then the variety doesn't seem to make as much difference. I mean, a lot of the numbers that we have on our farm, whether it's corn or soybeans, I usually find many numbers that are all about the same in yield by the time it's all said and done. So do everything else right on your farm, and that's going to minimize the difference between varieties.
And don't get all worried about things. Just take it easy. You're going to be just fine. You're going to raise a successful crop. Do all things that you can control. And you know what? Seed supply this year, you can't really control it 100%. You're probably going to have to switch a few varieties. It's not the end of the world.
Well, you know, Darren, one thing I hope we can control 100% is our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you how to do it on your farm coming up later in the show.